You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Sunday night, laptop open, staring at a spreadsheet you made yourself. You've been tracking every dollar for 4 months now. No subscriptions you don't use. No impulse Amazon orders. You've been bringing lunch to work in the same sad Tupperware container while your coworkers order Sweetgreen. You check your savings account balance. It says $7,340. 4 months of discipline. 4 months of saying no. And you've saved maybe enough to cover 2 months of rent if everything went wrong. Meanwhile, your cousin who got a tech job 5 years ago just mentioned at Thanksgiving that his investment account crossed $50,000. He wasn't even bragging. It came up casually like it was nothing. And the thing that really got under your skin wasn't the number itself. It was when he said, "Honestly, I don't even think about it anymore. It just kind of grows. It just kind of grows." You're over here agonizing over whether you can afford a $14 salad, and his money is growing while he sleeps. You did the math later that night. At a 7% annual return, his $50,000 is generating about $3,500 a year, passively. That's almost half of what you've managed to scrape together in 4 months of actual sacrifice. And that's when the thought hits you, the thought that kills more financial journeys than any market crash or emergency expense. What's the point? If this feeling sounds familiar, you need to hear what I'm about to tell you. Because the reason you're struggling isn't that you're bad with money, it's that nobody explained the brutal math of what you're actually up against in the early stages, and why pushing through right now is the most important financial decision you'll ever make. My name is Orion Invests, and I spend way too much time analyzing why the hardest part of building wealth has nothing to do with investment strategy. If you're someone who's grinding to save your first few $1,000s while watching others coast on momentum, subscribe and drop a like on this video. What we're covering today might be the permission you need to keep going. Here's the thing nobody wants to admit about personal finance. The advice is backwards. We celebrate the wrong milestones. We make it sound like once you start, momentum takes over. But that's only true after you survive the part nobody talks about, the brutal, unrewarding, soul-crushing grind of early accumulation. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why saving $7,500 is legitimately harder than growing $50,000. Not emotionally harder, mathematically harder, psychologically harder, harder in every way that actually matters. And more importantly, I'm going to show you why understanding this changes everything about how you should think about where you are right now. Let's start with the math, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. According to a 2024 Bankrate survey, 56% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency expense with savings. More than half the country is one car repair away from debt. That's not because Americans are irresponsible. Average savings rates have fluctuated between 3% and 8% of income over the past decade. And that's before accounting for inflation eating into purchasing power. The median household income in the United States is roughly $74,000. After taxes, that's somewhere around $58,000 take home for most people. If you're saving 10% of your take-home pay, which is actually above average and requires real discipline, you're putting away $5,800 per year. That's $483 per month. At that rate, saving $7,500 takes you about 15 months. 15 months of watching every purchase. 15 months of meal prepping. 15 months of saying no to trips, to dinners, to the little upgrades that everyone around you seems to afford without thinking. Now let's look at what $50,000 does in that same 15 months. At a conservative 7% annual return, $50,000 generates approximately $4,375 in gains over 15 months. Let me put that in perspective. The person with $50,000 made almost as much money doing literally nothing as you made through a year and a quarter of active sacrifice. Their wealth increased by nearly $4,400. Yours increased by $7,500. You worked harder for less. And this isn't even accounting for the psychological cost. A study from Princeton's Behavioral Economics department found that financial decision-making quality decreases significantly when people are in scarcity mindset. When you're scraping together your first few $1,000s, every financial decision carries weight. Every purchase is a calculation. That mental load doesn't exist for someone whose account is compounding on autopilot. This is the asymmetry that personal finance content glosses over. The early stages aren't just harder because you have less money. They're harder because every dollar you save costs you more mentally, emotionally, and in terms of what you have to give up. A report from the Federal Reserve found that the bottom 50% of Americans by wealth own just 2.5% of total household wealth. The top 10% owns 66%. That gap isn't just about income differences. It's about the compounding advantage that kicks in once you cross certain thresholds. But here's where it gets really interesting. The same Fed data shows that wealth accumulation follows a curved trajectory. It's slow at the beginning, painfully slow, and then it accelerates. The first $50,000 takes most people 8 to 12 years of working life. The next $50,000 can happen in 3 to 5 years. And the third $50,000 often happens in less than 2 years if you stay invested. This is the hidden mechanism that explains why early saving feels so unrewarding. I call it the effort to outcome inversion. And once you understand it, every piece of financial advice starts to make more sense. Here's how it works. In the early stages of wealth building, you supply almost 100% of the growth. Every dollar in your account got there because you earned it, sacrificed for it, and actively moved it. Your money contributes almost nothing. At $5,000 saved, a 7% return gives you $350 in a year. That's $29 a month, less than $1 a day. You could find that in your couch cushions. So the ratio is brutal. You put in $5,800 of active savings, your money puts in maybe $200. That's a 97% effort to outcome ratio. You're doing almost all the work. Now look at what happens at $50,000. That same 7% return generates $3,500 per year. If you're still contributing $5,800, your total growth is $9,300. But now your money is contributing 38% of the gains. You're still doing the majority of the work. But you've got a partner. At $100,000, the math flips entirely. A 7% return is $7,000. If you're contributing $5,800, your money is now doing more than half the work. And at $200,000, your money contributes $14,000 while you contribute $5,800. You're now the minority partner in your own wealth building. Your money has taken over. This is why rich people seem to get richer without trying. They're not smarter. They're not working harder. They've just crossed the threshold where their money works harder than they do. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Getting to that crossover point requires surviving the brutal early stage where you're doing all the work for almost no visible reward. And most people quit before they get there. A Fidelity study on retirement account behavior found that nearly 30% of people who open a 401k stop contributing within the first 2 years. The number one reason cited wasn't financial emergency, it was that the account balance wasn't growing fast enough to feel meaningful. People are literally walking away from their financial futures because the early math is so demotivating that it feels pointless. Let me give you a concrete example of how this plays out in real life. Meet Danielle. She's 27, working as an administrative coordinator in Chicago, making $52K a year. After taxes and rent and student loan payments, she has about $600 of discretionary income per month. She decides she's going to get serious about saving and starts putting $400 a month into a high-yield savings account. After 1 year, Danielle has $4,800. But here's what that year actually looked like. She declined a bachelorette trip to Nashville because she couldn't afford the $800 all-in cost. She stopped going to her favorite yoga studio and started doing YouTube videos at home. She switched from her regular grocery store to Aldi and spent an extra hour each week meal prepping. Total visible sacrifice, significant. Total visible progress, 1 month of rent in a savings account. Now let's look at Ryan. Same age, but Ryan got lucky. He graduated into a hot job market, landed a tech-adjacent role that paid $85,000, and his company had a generous 401k match. He started investing at 23, and now at 27, he has $54,000 in his retirement account. Ryan doesn't think about money much. He set up automatic contributions 4 years ago and basically forgot about it. He goes on 2 vacations a year, he orders whatever he wants at restaurants. He's not irresponsible, but he's not grinding. In the past year, Ryan's account grew by approximately $7,500 just from market returns and company match. He contributed maybe $6,000 of his own money, but it didn't feel like sacrifice because his lifestyle was never constrained in the first place. Here's the brutal comparison. Danielle sacrificed more than Ryan. Danielle felt it more than Ryan. Danielle's life was materially different because of her financial choices. And at the end of the year, Ryan's account grew by more than Danielle's entire balance. This is not fair, it's just math. And this is exactly why so many people in Danielle's position give up. Why bother clawing for $5,000 when someone else is passively generating more than that, without changing their lifestyle at all? The answer matters more than you realize. Here's the psychology you need to understand. Your brain processes financial progress through a lens of proportional reward. If you work hard and see a small result, your brain interprets that as a signal that the effort isn't worth it. This is deeply wired from our evolutionary past. Spending energy on activities with low returns was literally dangerous for survival. So when you save $400 and your account goes from $4,800 to $5,200, your brain does a quick calculation. That's an 8% increase. Not bad. But when you spent $400 on a weekend trip 6 months ago, the reward felt immediate and real. Your brain compares those two experiences and concludes that spending provides better returns than saving. This is what behavioral economists call delay discounting, the tendency to value immediate rewards more than future rewards. And it's amplified in early stage saving because the future rewards are genuinely small. At $50,000, the reward signal changes. Watching your account go from $50,000 to $53,500 in a year feels like real progress. Your brain registers that growth as meaningful. The proportional reward threshold has been crossed. Research from the University of Zurich found that the perceived value of savings increases non-linearly with account size. In other words, $5,000 in savings doesn't feel like half as good as $10,000. It feels like less than half. And $50,000 doesn't feel like 10 times better than $5,000. It feels like 20 times better. This is why the grind to $7,500 is so demoralizing. You're working against your own brain chemistry. Every fiber of your psychology is telling you this isn't worth it. And in the short term, it kind of isn't. The math doesn't get good until later. But here's what the brain doesn't calculate: trajectory. You're not trying to feel good right now. You're trying to cross the threshold where the math starts working in your favor. And the only way to get there is to survive the phase where it doesn't. The people who actually build wealth aren't the ones who feel motivated during early saving. Motivation doesn't work when rewards are small. The people who build wealth are the ones who build systems that don't require motivation. A study from Cornell found that automatic savings contributions increase the probability of long-term wealth building by 64%, compared to manual contributions, not because automatic savers have more discipline, because they remove the decision from the process entirely. When Danielle wakes up each month and manually moves $400 to her savings account, she has to experience the loss. She has to feel it. When Ryan's contribution gets deducted before he sees his paycheck, there's nothing to feel. The money was never available to spend. So here's what you actually do about this. First, automate immediately and aggressively. Whatever you're saving now, set up automatic transfers that happen on payday. Before you see the money, if possible, increase the amount by even $25 or $50. The goal is to remove the decision from the equation entirely. You cannot willpower your way through early stage saving. You have to systemize it. Second, track trajectory, not balance. Your savings account balance at $7,500 is not the point. The point is that you're someone who saves $400 a month consistently. That behavior, repeated over time, is worth more than any single balance. Create a tracking system that celebrates streaks, not numbers. How many consecutive months have you saved? That's your metric. Because the balance will eventually catch up to the behavior, but only if you sustain the behavior long enough. Third, calculate your crossover point based on your current savings rate and expected returns. Figure out when your money will start contributing as much as you do. For most people saving $5,000 to $8,000 per year, this happens somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. That number is your target. Everything before that is the grind. Everything after that is the payoff. When you're demoralized at $7,500, remember that you're not doing this for $7,500. You're doing this to reach the point where your money takes over. And every month you stay consistent is a month closer to that crossover. Fourth, find one person ahead of you who can validate the other side. Not someone who's still grinding like you. Someone who's already crossed $50,000 or $100,000. Ask them what it feels like on the other side. Ask them if they're glad they didn't quit early. Every single person I've ever talked to who pushed through the early stage says the same thing. It wasn't worth it when I was in it. It's worth everything now that I'm past it. That's the insight you can't experience until later, but you can borrow it from someone who's already there. Fifth, create a reward system that doesn't undo progress. Every time you hit a $1,000 milestone, give yourself something small. A nice dinner. A day off. A purchase you've been eyeing that costs less than $50. These aren't concessions to weakness. They're psychological wage payments that keep you in the game. The goal isn't to be a monk. The goal is to stay consistent long enough to reach the phase where consistency becomes easy. At the end of the day, saving $7,500 is harder than growing $50,000 because the universe doesn't reward you early. The reward structure is backloaded by design. You do the hardest work when the returns are smallest, and you coast when the returns are largest. That's not intuitive. It doesn't feel fair, and it's why most people never build real wealth. But knowing this gives you power. When you're stuck at $6,000, $8,000, $12,000, and you feel like it's pointless, you can remind yourself that you're in the hardest part. Not because you're failing, because you're early. And the only thing that separates you from your cousin with $50,000 compounding on autopilot is time, not talent. Not luck, not a better job. Time. The grind is not the point. The grind is the price of admission to the part where the grind stops being necessary. Every dollar you save right now, while it's still hard, while the rewards are still invisible, is a vote for a future where your money works as hard as you do. That future exists. It's mathematically guaranteed if you stay consistent. The only question is whether you'll still be in the game when you get there. You're not behind. You're just early. And early feels exactly like this. If this video helped you see the math differently, hit that subscribe button. I break down the psychology of money every week for people who want to understand why building wealth feels so hard, and what to actually do about it. Leave a comment and tell me where you are in the journey right now. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.